Today in Cooking Time, we have a great menu, some family favorites. We're going to go from one end of the country of Italy to the other, from Benevento to Sicily, which are like two different worlds, in my mother-in-law's eyes anyway, and we're going to do some great dishes with the two family favorites and fresh peas. Can you believe it? Fresh peas in the supermarket. Unbelievable. And if we have time, we're going to do a wonderful dish, which is a little bit of a drink in a blender that the kids are just going to love. Hello and welcome to Cooking Time. I'm David Martone, Executive Chef at Classic Time Cooking School here in Westfield, New Jersey. We've got some great dishes. We're going to get right to work. 3 different dishes. Looks like today we have some wonderful family favorites. We're going to go from one end of Italy to the other. First of all, we're going to start with a dish that my mother-in-law makes that my kids just love. It's called pastiera. It's a baked macaroni dish. First thing we've done, and I'm not brand specific, but you know what? It seems like Ronzoni is the only one I see good ditalini with. Ditalini are like little tubes, little miniature elbows that are cut in pieces and straight little tubes. So we've cooked up some of that ditalini and we have it in a bowl, and we just sprinkled a tiny bit of olive oil on it to prevent it from sticking. Now we have to take some eggs and some cheese, because this is such a simple dish. I'm not saying that it's all the best as far as not having a lot of fat in it, but you know what? These dishes like this, people just live on them. They've grown up on them, and my kids enjoy them totally. So we're going to crack some eggs in a bowl here, and we're going to whisk them up a little bit, and then we're going to add some grated cheese. Now, when I say grated cheese, I don't necessarily mean that you go to the supermarket and buy grated cheese. So we're going to pretend that we've done this exactly the way that my mother-in-law would do it. Now you have to understand, my mother-in-law, who comes from Jersey City, as well as my family coming from Jersey City, has very specific ways of doing things. When we grate cheese, it's always hand grated. And she gets my father-in-law, who's actually Polish, to hand grate the Italian cheese. So we have this mixed combination in the kitchen of my mother-in-law, who's from Benevento, and my father-in-law, who actually thought he was Polish. He's only half Polish. As it turns out, in the age of the internet, I'm whisking these eggs up, and now I'm going to whisk in a whole bunch of cheese. In the age of the internet, my father-in-law gets a letter in the mail that somebody's been doing some family history, genealogy, and he gets this letter that comes from Belarus. And actually, my father-in-law received a picture with it because, you know, my father-in-law's generation, they're always nervous that somebody's trying to steal their identity or rip them off for something. So there's a picture with this letter, and the letter says, my grandmother's brother married a Polish woman and lived in Jersey City, and we got letters up until 1959, and then the letters stopped. Can you tell me if any of these people are still alive? So here's our cheese and our eggs together. We're going to mix that in with our macaroni. So in with the letter is a picture of my father-in-law and his father, who was actually from Belarus. Now my father-in-law is saying, you know, I always wondered why my father spoke such eloquent Russian as well as Polish. I'm going to add a tiny bit of milk to loosen this up. So as it turns out, his father was from Belarus and his mother was from Poland. So here's this man growing up his entire life thinking that he's entirely Polish and having a very, very proud Polish heritage, and it turns out that he's half Belarusian. So anyway, my mother-in-law, of course, being from Benevento, which is miles and miles away in totally different worlds, immediately says, if I would have known he wasn't Polish and he was Russian, I would have never married him. Because the Italians are just very territorial about everything. Which brings me to my next story. Now look at this. All nicely mixed with the egg, the cheese, and like I said, we put a tiny bit of milk just to loosen it up. Now we're going to put it in a small baking dish that I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in. And I'm going to take a little piece of paper towel, and I'm just going to oil up this dish and mix it around. Get the edges and the sides all nicely oiled. and we'll put our macaroni in. So my mother-in-law growing up in Jersey City, and my family, my immediate family, mother and father growing up in Jersey City, when I meet my wife, my mother-in-law says to me, "Where are you from?" I said to her, "About 13 blocks north," and I tell this story all the time. Our macaroni dish called pastiria, which is my mother-in-law's from Benevento, going right into the oven now to bake. So I said to my mother-in-law, "About 13 blocks north," and she said, "I don't mean where did you grow up, where are your people from?" And I said, "Well, my grandparents on my mother's side came from Sicily." She took a step back. She looked me up and down. She went, "Sicily? The wind blew a little harder, it'd be in another continent." My wife said, "I think she likes you." So in Italy, from one town to another, it's like an entirely different country. Anyway, I love my mother-in-law dearly, and that pastiria is her dish that she makes, and my kids love it. It's just such a treat. When that comes out, we're going to cut it up, and it'll actually look like a little Rice Krispie treat. But picture that baked macaroni with the cheese and the eggs to hold it together. It is fantastic. So now we're going to jump back to Sicily, since we were talking about my great-grandmother and grandmother who came from Sicily. And when they came to this country, they cooked a squash. Now, we have zucchini here in this country, and they come in all different sizes. You'll see zucchini this big, you'll see smaller zucchini. But when my great-grandmother came with my grandmother to this country, they were used to another type of squash, and she called it gagoots. Now, the gagoot squash, it's like the size of a baseball bat, and it's more of a lighter green, and it has a little bit of a tougher skin. So my great-grandmother always called this dish gugoots, or gugutzio. Now, when I was young, they used to call me gagoots, but that's a whole other story. I think that was because I was a little bit stubborn. We're going to take the zucchini, and we're going to slice it up into small slices. I'm first taking and just cutting off the ends. When you look at the zucchini, you have the stem end and you have the flower end. So we want to just trim those ends off and take those two pieces, and we're going to discard those. We've washed the zucchini first, and we don't need to peel it. So this is an absolutely simple dish, terribly peasant-like in nature, but people love it. People love it. We make this dish here all the time. And I'm going to start slicing up my zucchini. I'm going to get rid of all these little end pieces. I'm going to start slicing up my zucchini and putting it into a little pot. And when I'm slicing it, I'm just going to cut it into little slices about, dropping everything, about this size, probably 1/4 of an inch. And I can cut this zucchini and not even watch, because I'm a good technician. And when you're a chef, you first need to be a good technician before you can become a good cook. You need to practice and hone your skills for your cutting techniques and your knife skills and all of the other fundamentals. So we're just going to slice this up while we're talking. Anyway, when my great-grandparents came here from Sicily, they somehow settled in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. Never really got the story straight how they managed to go there, but they moved to Lock Haven from Sicily. Must have been total culture shock for them. And they opened up fruit and vegetable markets. And we laugh about it because my mother used to always say, "Oh yes, my grandfather was the banana king of Lock Haven." Well, it seems like in the early days when they came, bananas being very nutritious, there weren't many supply lines open for bananas. And my great-grandfather figured out a way to get bananas here reasonably and made some deals to bring them in. And that was one of his main things that he sold, were bananas. Now, they sold all kinds of other produce. So growing up as a kid, we ate all kinds of vegetables. And to this day, we still do. And this dish, I tell people that I don't give them a recipe for it. Not because it's a family secret, but because it's so simple, so basic, that if I had to write this recipe down, you'd probably have to write down the recipe to make a cup of tea.